Hi, I'm Jim McCann, founder of 1-800-Flowers. I'm not satisfied when I learn something new unless I share it forward. And so we created this podcast to continue that, to share forward the wonderful people we get to meet and most importantly get to learn from and make our lives richer and better. Together we'll cover the human experience. And for me, the human experience is foundational in the idea of relationships. The topics will be far-reaching, but common element you'll see here is it's all about relationships. So I invite you to join us on this journey. Come experience it with us, share your thoughts and ideas, and become part of our community. We'd love to have you.
Can finding the right mentor at the right time make all the difference for young women? If you were to ask Illana Raia, she'd say yes. Studies have shown that girls' confidence drops between the ages 8 and 14, and many girls start to quit their hobbies and interests before they get to high school. To counter this, Illana founded Être Girls, a company whose mission is to keep girls close to what they love by offering curated free resources and inspiring female role models right when they need them. It all started by taking young women to luncheons with accomplished professionals and has since blossomed into large-scale events, in-school programs, and clubs across the country. Continuing this work, Illana created the Epic Mentor Guide, insider advice for girls eyeing the workforce from 180 boss women who know. In today's episode of Celebrations Chatter, Illana shares all about Être Girls, how her daughter was the inspiration behind it all, what she's learned along the way, and how mentorship changes the lives of so many young women. Listen as Illana and Jim share it forward.
How did this idea come about for you, Illana? I know you were pursuing another career. You had maybe a phony baloney law degree from someplace.
Something, I don't know, a lot of fluff. Yeah, I was a lawyer and I always thought I wanted to be a lawyer. My grandmother was a lawyer when women were not. She graduated from Brooklyn Law in 1936.
Wow, how many women in her class then, do you know?
I think 2. I think she was one of 2.
Wow.
The picture is amazing. I mean, it's just all these guys and then the 2 women front and center. But she loved her job. And I think I was sort of preconditioned to love it. And then when I got to law school, I knew I loved it. And I never thought I'd do anything except practice law, truthfully.
Yeah.
And I was at the same firm the whole time.
A very fancy firm here, Illana.
It was a fancy firm. I was at Skadden Arps, and I was there twice, actually. I did mergers and acquisitions for 5 years in the very beginning, straight out of school. Then I stopped for 6 years when my kids were small and was home. And then I went back for another 10 years as soon as my youngest went into a full day of school. And I mean, it was great. I love that firm. And the mentorship I got there, I think, was a huge inspiration for me to try to do this.
Tell young folks who might hear this, what was your 5 years like there? What was your first year like in Skadden? Big M&A firm, notoriously hardworking, smarter than smart. What's your work life like? Because we know you didn't have any personal life.
None at all. It was a circus and it was the Wild West and it was all of it rolled into one. And I could not have loved it more. I'm going to date myself, but this is at a time when I started out, there's no email. There's no remote access. There's nothing like that. You are at the firm. We had faxes. We had Westlaw and all the other bells and whistles that they had then, but you had to be on site. And there was huge value in that because you learned from these mentors, from these rock star lawyers in person. You followed them to meetings, you sat in their office and heard them on the phone with their clients. You learned by osmosis. And that, I think, elevated what you could do in just a rapid fire way, because there was no sense of, oh, you're a first year associate, you can only do this. If a partner liked your work and you were there all the time doing it, there was no ceiling to what you could do.
Yep.
And that I really loved. They did not move us in lockstep quite so much. You could just take the ball and run with it if you wanted. They wanted you to run very far and very fast. I slept in my office more times than I can tell you. I can tell you exactly how to flip over your desk chair and make it a pillow and sleep under your desk. All the time. I lived a block from the firm, which was very good advice that my father had given me because he knew a little bit what my hours would be like.
Yep.
And I can't imagine what my doorman thought I did for a living, because I would come home at 3 a.m, shower, change, go back. But what I loved about the firm and the work there, and it's true today at that firm, is that the problems that come from clients there are the hardest, and the challenges need the most creative solutions. No one gets to Skadden if their local counsel or their general counsel can solve the problem. They get there because the problem's so big and so thorny and so complicated that they need just a fleet of varsity players in every area to come in and to be there and to see your deal in the paper the next day and to work with on every level, the tax counsel, environmental, the corporate finance, everyone is at the top of their game. There's nothing like it.
And you're learning from all of them.
All of them. If you're listening hard and you just keep your eyes open all the time, everyone wants to answer your questions. Everyone wanted to see you succeed. I found it a really supportive, encouraging place. It just, you were hard charging all the time.
Now, Illana, you're peculiar and symptomatic both of the dilemma that the Wall Street firms, the accounting firms, all the professional service firms and law firms have to deal with. They all want to attract talented women to their ranks. But there is a biological issue here. And thank God, because if men had a bad children, we would have been extinct as a population a long time ago. So how did Skadden think about that? You said you worked there for 5 years, then took 6 years off, and then came back for 10. That's what they all hope will happen. It doesn't happen a lot or enough in their opinion. What did you see there? What are you seeing firms do to try and attract that talent and retain that talent? And what advice would you have for firms that are wrestling with this issue? They want to achieve better gender balance.
It's a great question. I know for myself, I felt at the time like I was a very 100% focused person. I knew the time commitment. I knew the level of overall commitment that place takes. And the minute I had my daughter, I felt that I was not going to be able to give what that job required at the time. And I think the firm respected it. I just said, I'm stopping. I will be back, but I need to do this. And then I had 2 kids in 20 months. So, it was all hands on deck for that. I don't know that they were sure I would come back, but when I said I wanted to come back, I don't think many people were surprised. And they immediately said, let's make it work. Let's figure it out. You can start part-time. You can extend it. Let's start it for 6 months part-time, see how it feels, and go full-time. I went full-time pretty quickly. And then I was in a slightly different area because I just didn't want to travel as much. That was the one thing. It was really hard to just jump on a plane at a moment's notice. I used to have a suitcase packed all the time. So I wound up doing something called knowledge strategy for them, where they wanted to build a new department that would leverage the firm's internal knowledge and specifically deal knowledge. So they needed someone who knew M&A, who knew the players and how the deals were structured. I had no tech background, but to build an internal database where you could access the latest and greatest really quickly and get all the information you needed.
So it wasn't just in, Joe's head or Diane's head.
Right.
There was a central repository of deal knowledge.
Right. Let's go talk to Joe Flom and find out everything he knew about this deal and put it at someone's fingertips. Because we were getting to the point where you could be in a cab and pull it up on your BlackBerry at the time on your way to a deal negotiation and see how it was going. So I worked with Tom Kennedy, who was an M&A partner at the time, on that. And that was successful. And it grew. By the time I finished 10 years, the department was built out. We had 35 practice areas built with this type of internal competitive advantage that was fantastic.
You said you weren't a technologist. Did you become a technologist?
I relied very heavily on a team of all-stars at Skadden. I was the girl who would walk in and say, here's what the tax department needs. They need to be able to push this button and have this pop up. And I could speak the legalese. And then they would say, stop talking. We understand. We will build it. Each department needed something different. It had to be tailored to the way they worked. Yep. But it was fantastic. And to my knowledge, no other firms at that level were doing it at that time. And Skadden had a lot of foresight. They put a lot of resources behind it. They gave me access to everyone and threw their tech team behind it, which was terrific.
What a learning experience.
It was great. And it exists today. I mean, it really has grown. But back to your point about women, what I tried to do while we were building that department was to reach out to women exactly like me who were, valued in their practice area, but left for family reasons. And I said, we've already trained them. We already know they know the work. And we've put a lot of time and effort into developing them, bring them back. Their job doesn't have to be a full-time role. They're not billing to clients. And that's what we did. And it was very, very valuable. And we regained a lot of talent we thought we lost.
Well, you have someone like yourself who's a trailblazer, shows the initiative. And frankly, I'm going to betray a prejudice here, but you had a firm that was thoughtful and open and had the right intention. And, when I say betray a prejudice, my prejudice is that business and the business community, including all the professional services, are the real social change agents that make things happen. And when a big firm like Skadden or the accounting firms, the consulting firms, EY is a trailblazer, when they get it in their mind that this is what they want to do because it's the right thing to do and it's going to happen, it happens.
I could not agree more.
And yet, for some strange reason, they're still pillared for being, capitalist and only interested in money. And the evidence is right in front of us that real social change happens because the business community adopts it, not because they're told they have to, but because some inspired leader says, this is the right thing to do and we're going to do it.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's very easy just to see the downside, to see, oh, they just work you to death and that's it and no one's listening. But they are listening. And they're particularly listening when they see something with a vision, someone that's looking at a problem with clear eyes and saying, you've already placed these resources here, bring them back, develop them more, and at the same time, build some internal advantage that's going to leverage all of the other people that you're bringing in for the first time. They just jumped on it, but they trusted the talent that was coming back. I think everyone was thrilled to see people come back that they thought they had lost. And if they could be used in a different way and bring value to the firm again, everyone was happy. I can't speak for any other firm. My entire career was at Skadden, but I'm still in contact with them today. And it is still that type of firm. They listen to their people with a very thoughtful ear.
So till children, in that 5-year time frame that you took off, where did you live then? Did you live suburban? Did you live in the city?
We were in the suburbs. We moved back to the town actually where I grew up, and I met my husband in that town.
Oh,
so
nice.
We had all 4 grandparents there. Yeah, we met in 7th grade.
All 4 grandparents there, huh?
Yes, which was a gigantic help.
As a grandparent, I'm all for recognizing the value of having grandparents in their grandkids' lives.
It's priceless. There were days I wanted to weep when one of them was going to walk out the door. I just wanted to keep them.
Well, what the benefit of an intact family and a support system around you, which probably played a big factor in you being able to go back to Skadden after those years.
It did. I didn't want to depend on grandparents, for full-time childcare. They were a huge source of just comfort and encouragement and telling me that I wasn't messing it up. But I waited until my youngest was in a full day of kindergarten and I had those hours to go. And then as everyone started getting into sports, both of my kids played a sport every season. It just extended my day really well.
Yep.
But having the grandparents involved all the time at their events, my kids walked into their grandparents' houses. They would kick the door down like they owned the place. They just were very comfortable everywhere.
As it should be.
And you know what? As it should be. There's such value in that. And the idea that it sounds silly, but you talk about mentorship. They were asking my parents and my in-laws tons of questions, but they now ask my kids all these questions to watch my kids advise them on whether it's social media or new technology or something. They have a comfort level and an intimacy, which is beneficial at every level.
We're blessed to have 7 grandchildren.
The
oldest is 13. They all live nearby. They keep moving closer. Apparently, there's
You've done something right.
on inexpensive, call it free babysitting.
Yep, but joyously so.
But over the most recent holidays, I was struggling with my iPhone to figure out how to create these different kinds of text groups, and I wasn't doing it right. And I said to my son-in-law, who's a very talented fellow, a banker, but very tech savvy. He's a tech banker. And I was asking him how to do it. He goes, wait a minute. And he called over my grandson, who was 9 at the time. He asked, his name is Liam, did you know how to do this? 9-year-old, but you just do this, Papa, you move this here, Papa, see, click on this. And I've been asking my tech support team in the office to help on this for a few months, and no one could quite figure it out. My 9-year-old grandson did it in a flash, you know.
Yeah, I feel an intern on
digital is different, right?
Exactly. It is. But you know what? What a great experience. And I feel like you've got a future intern right there.
Well, toward that, my grandkids, we have a summer house east in Long Island. So the family's together a lot in the summertime, especially on weekends. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Full house, noise, confusion, big barbecue situation going on a lot. But my grandkids get a kick out of the fact that Papa is a Coldplay fan.
Nice.
And they think, you know, it should be Lawrence Welk. But I got to check a box on my bucket list 2 weeks ago tomorrow. Out in your neck of the woods, there out at MetLife Stadium, Coldplay was performing.
Oh, so great.
So we got a bus and we got a big box, and it was kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, their kids. And we filled up this bus and this box, and we had a grand time. And my fondest memory of that night is the 4-year-old and the 100-year-old, all of us dancing at the same time with our electronic wrist bracelet. I was great. But that night,
I love this image.
And my wife and I in a bus on the way home that night, I said, I'm going to find an excuse to do something with each of those kids, each of those 7. I want to do something one-on-one with them over the summer, whatever they'd like to do. And I asked my 13-year-old, the oldest, her name is Abby, I said, what would you like to do? I'd like to go to the office with you for the day. Really? So now we enter your world.
Music to my ears.
We also have a charity called Smile Farms, which we started about 6 years ago. Everyone in the family is involved, nieces, nephews, everyone has a job to do. And the grandkids are now getting involved. So we just did a golf outing. The grandkids, some of them are allowed to take a half a day off from school. So they work the check-in desk.
Yes.
And this is not just my grandkids, but my brothers and sisters' kids too. Everyone has a job. And my the oldest, Abby, she was presenting the awards to the different honorees at the dinner. And I was amazed at the poise she had up at the microphone and how comfortable she was. So I'm looking forward to spending the day with her at work together. And that's pretty much what you're trying to engineer: exposure, widening the lens of their vision. When they see opportunities, when they walk around an office and say, well, what does that person do? Or they're in the factory and they say, what is that job? And if they don't get those exposures, they don't know that it's not just a fireman, a policeman, a male person, a nurse, a doctor, a teacher, that there's a myriad opportunities. So how did you get this idea? How did this become your passion? And how did you begin?
I love the question. And I absolutely love that she asked to go to work with you. I really do want to hear how that goes, because I think that's such a fantastic.
I tell you, I'm really looking forward to this.
I would imagine. When I was working, and both my kids were in school, my daughter was in middle school at the time. And I realized that she really did not know very much about what I did every day. And that was largely my fault. I would come home from work and the focus was so wholly on the kids that I wasn't talking about work. When they would do homework, I might get back and do more work, but I was not bringing my job front and center. And that bothered me a little bit, but it's not as if mergers and acquisitions is so easily accessible to a middle schooler to start with. What bothered me more was, as I got into it, she didn't know what a lot of my friends did. And I had this network of female friends with phenomenal jobs. You know, they were running fashion houses or surgical floors or working at a hedge fund and running public companies. And she would say, oh, that's your friend from book club. And I would say, well, she's anchoring the news right now. You know, she's doing more than being part of my book club. But I started to ask my friends, and our girls did not know what we were doing every day.
But let me stop you there. The fact that you had a book club and that your daughter knew that, and that you gathered with other professional women, and that community was really important to you.
Yes.
And being deliberate about maintaining a social network, all of those things she was learning that because you had a book club. But it also sounds like you and I both, I'm a lot older, but have a little hangover from our parents' attitude in terms of work is work.
Yes.
Home is home.
Yes.
That's blown up.
It is. That's very true. And certainly during COVID, right? Where girls sat at the kitchen table next to their mothers and watched them do their job. That was a really interesting dynamic because while women were meeting the moment during COVID and working, girls were meeting their mentors in a whole new way because they were watching their mothers side by side. I mean, that's a separate issue, but I find it fascinating. So I just thought to myself, this is a bad problem, but it's easy to fix. And I thought I would get a bunch of my friends together and we would just have our girls come and ask us questions about our job. What would you like to know about any of our jobs? And I had planned this sort of one-day girls summit, but I could not get all of these friends on the same back porch on the same day at the same time, just with our schedules. So I tabled that and I just started taking my daughter to meet these women where they worked for little 15-minute lunches. Very quick, but let's go see what it's like to work where she works. Let's go see what it's like behind the scenes at her job. Let's go sit in a boardroom for 5 minutes. And my daughter loved it. And if you ask her today, she would say, especially the hospital visits, the things like that really did inspire her. And I would stay in the background. I would say, this is your meeting. Ask your questions. And they didn't speak down to her and they didn't give her platitudes. Oh, follow your dreams, believe in your passions. They were very granular with their advice, which I love.
Whatever you're passionate about.
Right. Which is terrific, but she's 12 and she doesn't know. And so and I thought that was really helpful at the time. But as I started to get into it and think about it more and think about retiring from Skadden, I left in 2014. As I started to really think about doing more with mentorship and what would be next, I got into the data. And that's really where the girls and the age started to hit me. You know, you're reading research that says that by age 14, girls' confidence can drop by up to 30%. That by age 14, girls are dropping their sports at twice the rate of boys. They stop defining themselves as really, really smart right around that age. So why is that? There could be a million reasons. It could be related to social media. It could just be for the first time, the competition's getting a little steeper and they don't necessarily want to try out for that next soccer team in front of the bigger girls. They don't want to raise their hand in math or science because they're nervous about making a mistake. And I started to think, what if you took that girl and put her in front of the right mentor at exactly the right time? What if we don't have to wait till college or our first job to have a mentor? What if you introduce that girl to someone who says, oh, I hated raising my hand in math, but then I got over it when I was your age and now I work at Google and I'm an engineer, come meet my team. What if you took the girl who was about to quit soccer and introduced her to someone who said, I felt the same way, but I stuck with it and I stayed in my cleats and I played in college and now I'm training for the Olympics. What if you put the girl in front of the right person at the right time and they took her seriously? It doesn't have to be a lifetime of mentorship. It could be a mentor moment. But I don't know if it closes the confidence gap. I think it narrows it significantly. And so I started by saying, I'm just going to build a website. I had a little experience doing it at Skadden. I'm going to build a website and it's just going to be literally knowledge strategy for girls. Let's just put a website up, free, no ads, no sponsors, pushing resources out to keep girls close to what they love. If all of your friends are cheerleading and you really love chess, let's put some chess resources up.
Yep.
If you want to learn more about space, let's get some quotes from astronauts. And it was just role model quotes and things like that. And I launched it in 2016. I called it Être because it means to be. And I like the idea of asking girls who they want to be. I didn't necessarily want to say, tell me what you want to be. Frankly, I think with college applications, we ask that of kids too early anyway. Tell me exactly what you want to major in when you're 16 or 17. It's hard to know. Yeah. But who do you want to be? The pages on the website are keyed that way. Be Smart has academic and particularly STEM resources. Be Informed has age-appropriate news resources. Be Strong is all about sports. Be Charitable is self-explanatory. Be Innovative is all about young female founders. Who do you want to be? And I just put resources up and then said, I'm going to need a board. So my board was all middle and high school age girls. And I said, give me feedback. What else do you want to see? Who else do you want to hear from? But the big thing that changed it and made it grow was every day I sent about 5 cold emails out to women I didn't know saying, I've just started this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'd love your feedback, good or bad. Just any suggestions at all, please bring it. And Ariana Huffington wrote back within 6 weeks of the website launching saying, I love what you're doing. I would like for you to write for Huffington Post. Send me a video of you with your girls on your front. We taped it on our front porch. Send us your logo, which was terrifying because I didn't have a logo. So I took.
You do now.
I do now, but I took a screenshot of Être on the top of the website. And for the first 2 years, we had the worst logo ever. Grainy, horrible, because Ariana Huffington had it. And we were staying with it. But that really gave me a voice because it let me write. I wrote monthly for Huffington Post. And then when she moved to Thrive, I moved to Thrive, breaking down topics for girls. Let's talk about equal pay. Let's set it up like it's a middle school math problem, but let's make the math make sense. Let's talk about women in sports. Let's talk about what midterm elections mean, not underestimating girls and anticipating their questions or collecting them from our girls. And that really was the inspiration. I think it started with my daughter, but the more I got into the data, I felt like middle school was the sweet spot to bring mentorship in early. Let's bring in early and very diverse access to mentors at an early age and let girls ask their questions. What happened after that, I never would have expected with the company visits, but all of those things happened because of the girls. You know, everything that happened next in 2017, one of my girls said, I want to bring it to my school. Why can't my school have a club like this? I hadn't thought about that.
You've already had an impact on us as recently as yesterday.
Really?
Lisa Sabat is our producer. She's my chief of staff. Wonderful young lady, mom of two. Did what you did, took a few years off, back to work now, and we're very lucky that we were aware that she was returning and we could put a net over her right away and drag her in. But we were chatting about you yesterday and the value of mentorship, and she was touting some of the statistics you just shared with us about the impact of mentorship. And today, this afternoon, the lady who runs HR for us here at Flowers, her name is Faith Bradley. Lisa and I stopped by her office yesterday and said, I know you're presenting next year's HR plan, and we'd already given her a list of a lot of things we want to see in the soup. But we stopped by yesterday and said, Faith, one of the things we're going to be keenly interested in is your ideas and plans to re-energize our mentorship programs around the country for our company. She said, you will be pleased. So you've already had an impact on this little company here at Flowers to make sure we're shining the right light on our mentorship programs. And one of the things that was most attractive that Lisa shone a light on yesterday was the impact you say that mentorship has on retention.
Yes, I think it's true. I think mentees, Forbes has said it, mentees are 5 times more likely to be promoted. And people who have been mentored are 90% more likely to mentor somebody else. It is not just good for companies, you know, the bottom line in terms of making sure that talent teaches talent. But I think that people who receive mentorship at a place that they love are so likely to continue that. It is self-sustaining. And that's true at the corporate level. And I think it's true in after school clubs where I have a senior who's graduating who passes the baton to a freshman to continue the club because they've watched somebody lead the club. You can teach someone to be a founder. You can teach someone to say, we're bringing this to the school and it's going to change the campus. I think the same thing is true at a company as large and successful as yours to say, let's teach that company culture. What made us successful? We have to keep reiterating it. We have to keep institutional knowledge here.
And you can't control a culture, but you can influence it. And if you let things get stale, they'll go away.
Right. And I think everyone has something to learn from someone else, and everyone has something to teach somebody else. So
and it's not hierarchical. You don't only learn from up.
Right. There can be reverse mentoring. There's peer mentoring. I mean, there are a million labels, but if you've created a culture where people are learning from each other and actively listening to each other, I think the mentorship is going to happen organically.
So you're smart, you're driven, you're conscious of opportunity around you. You realize how fortunate you've been in your life and the wonderful gifts that you've had in terms of family and opportunity. How did this idea become, is it a business?
It is a business. It is not a nonprofit. When I incorporated it in 2015, I really struggled with the entity choice. You know, the lawyer hat was on.
Yep.
I think I just didn't know what it was going to be. And so I wanted more flexibility. So it is, it's a B Corp. It's a benefit LLC. So the social mission of educating and mentoring girls is built into the charter. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm still self-funded right now. I am getting opportunities where people would like to sponsor, and I just haven't made that move yet. I feel like I'll know it when I see it.
But I like that you did it that way and not, look, I'm involved with a lot of not-for-profits, and I think that in-between world that you live in is one that needs to be invested in. And not-for-profits is just a different tax structure. So
Right.
I think that new in-between area that you're seeing a little bit more of, that you're in, is a wonderful opportunity. Where would you generate revenue?
Well, right now, honestly, the books. I mean, this is my second book, and every dollar that goes into the books
You
is
mean this little
there.
thing?
It is. Thank you.
The Epic Mentor Guide.
Yes, it came out March 15th, so it's still sort of a baby book. But
The Ides of March.
yes, but I couldn't be happier with the reception and the response to it, and I can already see. I mean, just between us on the podcast, I can see the idea of a series, because this will be one way to bring revenue in and keep us funded for a bit, with the idea being that every visit to a company will always be free for every girl everywhere. I mean, that I'm committed to. So when we first started and I was busing girls in from New Jersey, I was still in New Jersey, and I would get a bus and we would stop in Ridgewood and Hackensack and Jersey City and pick girls up and go into these companies and bring them back. Never a cost. I do not want anyone's zip code to dictate the access that they have to a mentor. It's just too important.
But it clearly is a factor.
Well, it's a factor in that, someone might say, oh, I have a family friend that could get me into that company anyway. But if I'm bringing a busload of girls from a million different schools, the relationships that they form on that bus, the networking that they do together, they're all asking the same questions. I mean, that's what's staggering. All of these girls want to know, how do you get an internship at SpaceX? They all want to know how to network on TikTok or get their art seen at Pixar. And so part of the book, when we couldn't go into companies, was to collect all their questions and ask those women at those companies how to do it. But they should have the same access. And girls everywhere are asking exactly the same questions about the work world.
A lot of the lessons that I learned, and I'll ask you for an anecdote about those relationships that form on the bus. The 13-year, 14-year-old that's sitting next to the 16-year-old, and the 16-year-old tells her, hey, don't be putting that crap on TikTok. That stuff's going to be with you forever.
Right.
That makes more of an impression on that 13-year-old than 100 adults preaching it all day long. Right?
It does. And the coolness factor of the whole experience. The girls pick the companies. So right away, I'm not taking them to a company they don't want to go. So they're on a bus to go to YouTube or Google, wherever they're going.
Or someplace cool like 800 Flowers.
Someplace cool like 800 Flowers, which don't tempt me more than once. But I
didn't dangle a hook without thinking about it.
I love it. I love it. The coolness factor of the trip itself. Then she's surrounded by girls older or from a different school or anything like that together. They are all interested enough in where they're going that they have a common ground to start with. They're not completely random. They've got this bond because they all want to be at this company and have asked to go. They're all talking about what they want to ask. The bus rides home are some of my favorite anecdotes, because then I'm really quiet and I have an ear to the back listening to what they're saying. And they're talking about what this one woman said about how she got her job and she stalked the lobby of this company until she saw the president come in and had the guts to go up to him. And
so you're training stalkers. Come on.
I know, but in a good way, in a vicious way. But they're talking about what that one woman was leading her team, and the whole team was men. And did anyone else notice the fact that she was the only woman in the room and she was leading the team? That the guy brought the coffee, and they noticed the smallest things. They compliment each other on the questions they asked. Oh, I was going to ask that, but you asked about negotiating a salary, or you asked, what she majored in college. And then you hear them whispering in the back, we're going to be the people that answer the questions someday. And they're sitting in a seat with a bunch of girls they just met 3 hours ago. And they're all talking about how they're going to be the ones answering the questions at the front of the boardroom someday. Any
stories stick out in your head about the impact from the earliest days and relationships that might have formed?
What we're seeing now, and this is really new. So I started in 2016, but I didn't start going into companies till 2018. And that, again, an idea from one of the girls. It's great that we interview them. Why can't we go there? And the minute we went, Spotify hosted our first. The minute we went, I knew that this was going to be the heart of Être. It's bringing the girls into the room. Now that girls who started in 2018 are going off to college, maybe they were in middle school or high school, and now they're in college, they're reaching back to the women they met. hi, I met you at Goldman Sachs when I was a freshman in high school. Now I'm interested in majoring in finance. Could I ask you a question by email? Would you look at my LinkedIn profile? And the women are doing it. So there's this nice loop that's closing right now as our girls first start to go to college. And I cannot wait. Être Campus started very organically because of that, to keep the girls in college connected to this network that is ever expanding. And there's no connection I won't try to make. You know, if a girl emails me and says, oh, I met this woman at the stock exchange, do you think she'd talk to me? I'll absolutely ask. I'm fearless to ask for these girls. And I'll say that she may say no. She may not be able to. She might recommend you speak with someone else on her team, someone more junior, but let's see. And so those relationships are just starting to form, and it's so, so exciting to see.
So what impact has this had on Sophia and Lawrence?
They laughed quite a bit because they thought that I was retiring, and they knew all of this that is going on. My daughter takes personal pride in this. She has a tiny little E tattoo on her wrist. So I love that. I think they're amused more than anything else. I think they see podcasts and books, and I think I did the Today Show, and at that point they were like, you really have to stop saying that this is a passion project. You're doing it. I hope they're proud. I think they're amused, but both of them were so much of the inspiration for this, because you want them to see that the ball isn't this big, the ball is this big. And to think, ask every question. You know, I say it ad nauseum, but raise your hand, don't lower your standards. I say it to my girls, I say it to my kids, but I truly mean it. And I think they see that asking questions pays off. My husband, I think he is the most patient man on God's earth, because he'll walk in and see, 100 Etra water bottles in the hallway, and what are we doing? But he was the one who said, do this with the same commitment and the same intensity that you've done everything else. Don't treat this as a hobby. Get into it if you're into it. And I was really grateful for that.
Sounds like a pretty good mentor.
He is the best. He is the top of my list. My first phone call always.
So when you and I connect again a year from now, what checks do you want on your to-do list?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I want to scale this, and I feel like schools might be the way to do it. We have after-school clubs in the US and now India and South Korea for the first time this year. And I feel like schools are a natural way to scale it, because you can bring incredible female mentors into a school. You can mine the mom population. There are moms with amazing jobs who, like me, could not have been a school mom, but would certainly come in for a day and talk about their job.
And maybe those moms who are organizing this on your behalf are learning a great deal from the experience too.
I do hope. So I think I want to scale. I recognize that I need to get serious with a business plan. I see the irony in the fact that an M&A lawyer did not go into this with a finished, formalized business plan. I see it. But it's time. We're growing quickly. We're 6. It's time to actually know who we are and take advantage of some of these companies who are saying, let us know how we can help.
Is there an opportunity for you to from the revenue side of things, to package, but how to develop a mentorship attitude and a mentorship program in their companies that would have several layers to it?
Yes.
That's something that companies, are all spending more than they ever thought they would on the human capital, the human talent development functions. And having a mentorship program, you've ticked off a dozen benefits for a company to have one, and of several different stripes. So I wonder if there is an opportunity for a company to say, hey, I could go hire Atra, and I'll get a kit, a package, and they'll help me get this going. Yeah, that's a very good investment.
I do think so. And I like the way that you've just described it. I think the idea of a full package with, levels to choose from. And then another level, when this is just starting too, is that companies have been coming to us saying, could we have 10 girls to be a focus group? Fully confidential, but we are rolling something out, and we'd like some unvarnished, ruthless opinions. And that has happened with us a few times now. And I would love to see it happen more, because the girls feel really heard. They are, I'm not joking, ruthless with their advice. If they don't like something or they don't see the point, they will say it. They have great suggestions, but they love being involved, particularly with brands that already have alignment for them. They already have some brand affinity. They already use the product or love the brand. They love having their opinions asked. And so I think particularly for brands in that tween, teen, young professional space, I'd love to see the girls put forward more and be useful to a company.
You remind me, some years ago, my niece, my brother Chris is the CEO of Flowers and has been for the last, coming up on 6 years. I'm the chairman now. And his daughter, his youngest, was maybe 12 or 13. And we were over his house for some function, graduation or something. And his daughter got in my ear. Her name is Devin. His daughter got in my ear about products that we don't have, that we should have, that she would use for gifting to her friends. So I said, wow, geez, I got an earful from Devin, and she's a quiet, terrific kid. She's now works for Special Olympics worldwide. And so I said to my brother at the end of the night, I said, wouldn't it be interesting to put a group of young people like that together and use them as a focus group? And we did. And we had boys and girls. And I'll tell you though, boys and girls are different at that age. The boys were impossible to corral.
Right.
Couldn't get them to pay attention and smacking one another in the head. And the girls were dead serious.
Yeah.
Some of them had done their field work. They had gone out to the mall and were shopping around, brought in pictures of what they were thinking. And if this product was a little different, this is something that I would use to express myself to someone else my age. And I would like to personalize it in this way. And it was terrific. Well, the boys dropped out and we continued for about 3 years with that same cohort of young women.
Fantastic.
And it was really energizing for our merchants and our marketing leadership. They all wanted to get in with this group. When they came, they were so serious, and they did homework, and they brought show and tell in. It was just and I can think of a couple of products that are in online now that were inspired by those interactions. So I just made a note to re-energize that activity, and maybe
I love it. It's beneficial to the company, and it's truly beneficial to the girls. I have some moms, if the girl is young and she's putting her on the bus or she's delivering her to me, and they'll say, she's so excited to see this company, but she probably won't say anything. She's super shy. She doesn't know these girls. Just let her just experience it, but don't.
And what happens?
That is always the girl with her hand up the entire board meeting, spinning around in her board chair with 1,000 questions, and her voice is raised because someone, not me, not her mom, but a female executive is looking her dead in the eye saying, this is your meeting. What questions do you have for me? And that girl's hand is up the entire hour. And it's so interesting to see. I think giving girls access, not just to leadership, but to opportunities to be heard and have her opinions be valued. I'm not telling them what to say one way or the other. I'm not saying, oh, I hope you really like their product. Tell her what you think. Be thoughtful. Don't be reactive. Listen first. Lots of those skills that you want to see in young professionals as they come into a job. I don't think it's too early, if it's an area that the girls like, to start thinking about that.
Well, Illana, I so appreciate the opportunity to meet you, get to know you, read your book, and to learn all about the things you're doing. The book, again, is the Epic Mentor Guide, and what you're doing at Outre is just amazing. And you gave me so many ideas that for the rest of the day, and certainly for the next week or two, I'll be driving people crazy around here with ideas that came from our discussion. So it's so nice to meet you. Your personal story, your family story, your professional path, and now this exciting project that you've initiated here and making it into something amazing. And I can't wait to check back in with you over time and see how this develops, because I'm sure it will. And the amount of impact you're having on people's lives is almost incalculable, but I bet you'll figure out a way to calculate it.
I'm honored to be here. Honestly, thank you so much. I love your book. I love the podcast. I love that you've talked about mentorship with other guests. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to keep track, and I bet there's a little follow-up conversation in terms of what we can do to help you in your mission at this little flower shop that we operate here.
I'm honored. I'd say the word.
Well, I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and I know I'll be sharing it forward. I hope you get to as well. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow me along on Twitter at Jim1800Flowers and on LinkedIn at Jim McCann. Hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Celebrations Chatter. You can join our community by reaching out at chatter@celebrations.com. And while you're at it, tell us what topics you'd like us to explore here on the Celebrations Chatter podcast. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to share it forward.